Hey everyone, and welcome to this Ethical Point Explainer. If you're an aspiring civil servant gearing up for the UPSC exams, or honestly just someone fascinated by the intersection of philosophy and public service, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're taking a really deep dive into General Studies Paper 4. Now, I'm going to be playing the role of the inquisitive student today because, well, let's face it, ethics can sometimes feel like a really dry, theoretical subject, right?
It definitely can, and I will be playing your mentor for this session. But listen, the truth is, ethics is not just syllabus material to memorize. It is literally the ultimate tool for a civil servant. It's highly practical. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how these concepts actually work in the real, messy world of administration.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the ethical operating system, then explore how we promote values in life and tackle resolving workplace dilemmas. After that, we'll dive into decision-making frameworks and wrap the whole thing up with UPSC Mains value add. Let's get into it. All right, jumping into Section 1, the ethical operating system. You know, when I look at the GS Paper 4 syllabus, I just see a lot of abstract ideals. So I have to ask, is ethics really just a list of moral high grounds that sound good in theory, but have absolutely no real bearing on how a government office actually runs?
Oh, that is such a common misconception, and it's exactly what we need to unlearn today. Ethics is not just some abstract ideal. It actually acts as this invisible operating system for society. Think about your smartphone for a second. You don't see the operating system, right? But it's constantly running in the background, making sure your apps don't just crash into each other. Well, in an organization or a society, ethics does the exact same thing. It reduces organizational friction, it builds trust, and it aligns your personal actions with our collective goals. Without it, the whole system basically crashes.
That makes sense. Okay, moving on to Section 2, promoting values in life. So, if ethics is this invisible operating system, what exactly is it programmed to promote in our daily lives to make sure everything functions smoothly?
Really great question. The output of that system is a set of core values that actively lower what we call the transaction costs of life. And the crucial point here is social cohesion. To give you a layman's definition, social cohesion is basically the glue that keeps different groups from tearing each other apart. It's our ability to coexist, and it relies entirely on virtues like empathy, compassion, and self-discipline.
Okay, so instead of relying on, say, heavy surveillance or endless legal contracts or just raw power to keep people in line, social cohesion builds trust and equity?
Exactly. When a society has a strong ethical operating system, people just naturally prioritize the common good over their own immediate impulses. I mean, it is so much cheaper and more efficient than having a police officer stationed on every single corner.
Wow, okay, so this brings up a really fascinating contrast. You've got the total chaos of immediate self-interest battling against long-term sustainability. Honestly, that feels like the root of almost every environmental or economic crisis we're facing today. You hit the nail on the head. Ethical living forces accountability. It demands that we actually own our actions and whatever consequences come with them. If we just chase immediate gratification, we're going to drain our resources. But an ethical mindset, that forces us to look ahead and protect future generations and our environment. It really is the difference between making a quick profit today and building a system that can survive for a century. All right, let's look at Section 3, resolving ethical workplace dilemmas. Okay, so I am totally sold on the theory, but let's pivot to the real world for a second. How does an administrator actually use these values when they're facing professional friction? Like, what happens when you're sitting behind your desk and the pressure is really on?
Right, this is where the rubber meets the road. In day-to-day administration, we constantly face ethical dilemmas. Now, a layman's definition of an ethical dilemma isn't just choosing between right and wrong. I mean, that part is easy. A true dilemma is a situation where two right values clash, or where your personal interest is in direct conflict with your professional duty.
Like having to choose between being loyal to a close friend versus being fair to the general public?
Precisely. And to resolve these kinds of day-to-day clashes, administrators have to rely on specific ethical tools. Let's look at the first tool in that toolkit.
Objectivity. Simply put, this means taking a step back, totally detaching from your personal biases, and just looking at the cold, hard facts. So if I'm an administrator and I have to allocate limited government resources, say I'm deciding which village gets a brand new water well, objectivity is the filter that stops cronyism. It makes sure I don't just magically give the well to the village where all my relatives happen to live. Exactly. You evaluate the choices based solely on the merits of the competing needs, nothing else. Got it. And then we have transparency. I absolutely love the metaphor from the source material for this one. Transparency acts as sunlight. When things are done in the dark, suspicion and hostility just grow. But if you open up your decision-making process to public scrutiny, you completely disarm your critics.
Absolutely. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. By being transparent, you proactively de-escalate conflicts because everyone can see exactly how and why a specific decision was made.
But here's the thing. Transparency doesn't work alone. It works hand in hand with accountability. In layman's terms, this just means owning your actions. If you make a decision, you have to be willing to take responsibility for the consequences. If there's any perceived unfairness in your administrative choices, accountability is your willingness to step up and answer for it. Next up, we have integrity. Think of this as your internal moral compass. The layman's definition of integrity is beautifully simple: unity of thoughts, words, and deeds. Basically, what you think, what you say, and what you do are all exactly the same thing. Oh, this seems absolutely crucial for avoiding what the syllabus calls a crisis of conscience, right? Because when your actions don't match your beliefs, it just eats you up inside. Yes, and even more practically, integrity gives an administrator the moral courage to stand up against peer pressure or corrupt practices. It is that inner strength that allows you to say no, even when literally everyone else in the room is saying yes. Okay. Let me challenge you with a realistic workplace dilemma, a super standard office power struggle. Let's say you're a manager. You were explicitly tasked with maximizing company profits, but doing so means you have to severely cut employee welfare benefits. How do these abstract ethical ideals actually resolve something like that?
Oh, that's a classic clash of two right priorities. And the key to resolving it without completely blowing up the organization lies in our next concept:
Compassion and empathy. Now, in an administrative sense, compassion isn't just about feeling sorry for someone. It is the active attempt to understand the why behind someone else's opposition.
So instead of just seeing the employees as a roadblock to profits, an ethical actor uses compassion to really open up communication?
Exactly. You mediate. You understand their needs, and you find a win-win compromise, like maybe identifying inefficiencies somewhere else in the supply chain to save money, so you don't have to cut welfare. Using empathy prevents the conflict from escalating into a massive strike or a wave of resignations. That is a great way to look at it. Okay, Section 4, Frameworks for Decision-Making. But what happens when empathy just isn't enough and you're forced to make a really hard call where someone is inevitably going to lose out?
Yeah, so when intuition and basic values aren't quite enough to solve a complex crisis, civil servants rely on structured philosophical frameworks. The first one is utilitarianism. The layman's definition here is focusing on the greater good. It's a highly practical tool for weighing really tough choices. You calculate the outcomes, and you choose the path that provides the maximum benefit to the maximum number of people.
Right. And then, in total contrast to that, we have deontology. Simply defined, deontology is duty-bound action. It means you strictly adhere to your fundamental duties or the rule of law, completely regardless of what the immediate outcome or consequence might be. You're not calculating the greater good at all. You just do what is intrinsically right. So let's see how a civil servant actually weighs these two paths. Imagine an unprecedented administrative crisis. Let's say a local protest is blocking a major highway, and it's stopping essential medical supplies from getting to a hospital. A utilitarian approach might say, hey, clear them out by any means necessary, quickly, because the maximum benefit is saving lives in that hospital. But a deontological approach might say, wait, it is my fundamental duty to uphold their democratic right to peaceful protest and avoid unlawful force, even if it delays those supplies. An ethical administrator has to weigh these distinct paths to arrive at a truly justified decision. Man, that is a tough call to make. All right, finally, Section 5, UPSC Mains Value Add. So how does the student actually translate this entire theoretical discussion into a high-scoring 10-marker exam answer for GS Paper 4?
Well, knowing the theory is only half the battle. Structuring it on paper is what actually gets you the marks. Let me give you the ultimate thematic anchor for your essay. Consider this really powerful premise. Ethics transforms everyday functioning from chaos into order without the need for constant policing. If you use this concept in your answer, you immediately show the examiner that you understand the intrinsic value of ethics. It's not a burden. It is the very thing that intrinsically sustains an organization.
And here is your step-by-step structure for that 10-marker. First, always start your introduction with standard, crisp definitions of whatever ethical terms are asked. Second, in the body, weave in the analogies we discussed today. Talk about ethics as the operating system and transparency as the sunlight that disarms critics, and support that with relevant quotes from thinkers or leaders. And third, your conclusion should always offer a practical way forward, showing how these values align individual actions with the collective good. That is such a brilliant blueprint. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave our viewers with a really provocative thought drawn straight from the source's trend extrapolator. Can a system remain efficient in the long run if it is legally sound but ethically hollow? Oh, it's a powerful question, and it challenges all of us to reflect on the true, real-world weight of ethics, way beyond just following the rulebook. Exactly. Well, thank you so much for walking us through all of this, and thank you all for joining us on this Ethical Point Explainer. Keep reflecting on these dilemmas, and we will see you next time.